Hey, this is Brendan Quinn, MLI Media Group here alongside Michigan football beat writer Nick Baumgardner. Nick, the news on Monday here at Brady's press conferences is Derrick Green out for the year with a broken clavicle suffered in that loss to Rutgers. He was a guy who had shown so many glimpses this year, and then I think really broke out in portions of that Rutgers game, and it's unfortunate for him. Where does it leave them in the backfield?
Well, it's terrible for Derrick Green, who's actually, I thought, barring a couple stops and starts here and there, has turned himself into a really good football player, or a promising one at that, and that's just brutal for him to have to miss the rest of the season now for his own development and everything else. So that's number one. I suppose number two, where that leaves them, is Davion Smith appears like he'll be the feature guy the rest of the way. So Davion will get a chance to see what he can do. It was interesting. Davion Smith did actually have to get helped off the field at the end of the game. The Rutgers game, I saw him leaving the stadium later after everything had cleared out, and he looked to be fine. But and Hoke had said that whatever he was dealing with didn't indicate that it was a long-term deal. So that's that. But behind him it's Justice Hayes and Drake Johnson. But I got to think at this point you're going to just ride Davion Smith and probably. 20 carries plus, I would think, would probably be the situation. So Davion's going to have to be in tip-top shape and be able to handle that. And I think every running back wants that opportunity. Now he's going to get it.
Much of the production in the run game in the second half, or especially, I guess specifically that fourth quarter on Saturday, came from Baumgardner going out and doing things and making things happen. Doug Nussmeier asked today about trying to exploit some of those things, kind of hedged around it and said, he doesn't want to, it's that delicate balance of not getting a guy hurt and still getting the most out of a guy with his athleticism. Where do you fall on that of how they're getting the most out of Baumgardner?
Well, they're not, and I can't quite figure out the unwillingness to sort of not be stubborn, I guess, there and not at least, because every time they moved him Saturday, every time they moved him out of the pocket, every time he got out, was able to get out and see things a little differently and have his feet with him and just play like he's always played, just be himself. Every time they allowed him to do that, something good happened. They scored a touchdown twice. The one sprint out that the Darbo catch that everybody was, ended up being a controversial play. It was a great play call. And it was a great play, and it was right there, and it was a sprint out pass. And that's where Devin's in his element. And why, if you're going to continue at this point to just be so stubborn, to have him sit in the pocket and stand there, kind of like a sitting duck with an offensive line who can't protect, then you're just wasting his ability and wasting his talent. It makes no sense to me. I would say Devin would probably tell them, don't worry about my health, let me worry about my health, let's just go play football. I mean, at some point they're going to have to adjust. And if they don't, they're not going to do anything on offense.
And the other thing that kind of goes with that is when he does get out, I feel like for a wide receiving core that has, for most of the year, had difficulty getting separation at times, when you get defenses moving and you get a quarterback who's out of the pocket, you got guys who can alter their route, you can all types of things can happen outside just a standard, 3 or 5 step drop, guys run their patterns, nothing happens, Devin gets sacked in the backfield. But that's it for the offense. Let me jump over to defense. Letting up some big numbers in these 4 losses this year, at both yardage and on the scoreboard. And the biggest thing that I got from Greg Madison talking today was just the big-time disappointment about just not making plays to win that game. He took a lot of it. He took that loss on himself and on the defense. I think that was overly harsh, or do you think that was very much?
I think that's fair, because unlike the Nussmeier system, we can criticize that all day long. It's brand new. It's the first year they've done this. This is the 4th year of this defense under Greg Madison and Brady Hogan. For them to go out there and give up 400 yards through the air to Gary Nova, who threw 5 picks a couple weeks ago against Penn State and is a nice player, but let's not confuse him with the guy they're going to see Saturday, Christian Hackenberg, who's a pro. Let's not confuse him with that. For that to happen in year 4 and for the secondary to be so disjointed and so disorganized, there's absolutely no excuse for it. So when Greg Madison says, I put that all on my shoulders, he should. And his whole defensive room should, because that was the group going into the season. They have all these guys who've played all this football. Frank Clark's been a starter for almost 4 years. He's got to make that sack on Nova there at the end of the half. Blake Countess has been a starter for 3 years. He's got to cover better than that. And these safeties have got to be on the same page. Jordan Lewis at least looks like he's competing, but he's the only guy back there doing it. And, Jake Ryan's missing tackles. That's ridiculous. It's year 4. I mean, we expected this group to have a type of a chance to maybe be a dominant defense. They're not even close. And that is that's probably more telling than anything because Hoke's a defensive coach too, and why they're just so lost at that point in that game, there's no excuse for it.
And Hoke not nearly as outspoken about the defense as Greg Madison did. Well, that'll be it for us from Brady's press conference here on Monday. Looking forward to a week of build-up, maybe a little less controversial than that.
I would hope so.
We'll see.
We'll see.
So Penn State on Saturday. Until then, for Nick, I'm Brendan. Thanks for watching.